Hello, going live. Take two. You may or may not have seen that I attempted this about 10 minutes ago. Couldn't find the remote control because it's pathetic, but I'm so into my little ritual of how this works. So I like having myself on the TV over there. I like having the iPad controller there. Couldn't find the iPad, couldn't find the TV remote control. Ended up giving up. Pathetic, isn't it? I just got annoyed and just stopped. Anyway, let's test my message is working. Yes, it is. Lovely. So what am I planning to do today? Well, firstly, I'm planning to stay awake because I fell asleep earlier. Yesterday was quite a stressful day because I had a leak, a plumbing leak, which got sorted out, but it was very expensive. But it's sorted out. That's the important thing. That's the thing to take away from that. And then today I did a lovely interview with T.G. Campbell, which we going out as part of her In Conversation with Strand at some point. Yeah, sorry, I was just being silly. So there'll be an interview coming out at some point in the next couple of weeks. A conversation really that I did with T, which I really enjoyed doing. Actually, I've watched my copy back. And yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed it. I'm annoyed that I didn't get the names of those actors, Derek Roberts, and I've already forgotten the other one. No, Derek Roberts was the character. No, Derek was the Ben Roberts. Ben Roberts, and the guy who played anyway, it doesn't matter. So what I need to do now, Ben Roberts and I've forgotten his name. The guy who played DCI, Jack Meadows, or Detective in, all those characters. Ben Roberts and, Simon, what's his face? Yes, that's it. Simon Rouse. But yeah, I've got all that to look forward to. So I will, once it's been out a little while, I'll probably pop it on here so you can see what you missed. And I might even ask someone's permission to use it as a bonus podcast at Christmas, actually, because it was good fun. So, yes. Can I use it as a bonus, the audio as a bonus podcast at Christmas? Pretty please. Maybe split into two, actually. So it's two bonus podcasts at Christmas. But thank you. So what I'm here to do today is I need to get 3 chapters signed off a day to hit the targets and everything that I have set myself. So I have in front of me chapters 13, 14 and 15 of Still Life. They have had the editing work done on them. So this is literally just a case of hopefully going through them and signing them off. Have you loaded up your Discord? I have, because it was still on after I lost my rag earlier. Oh yes, I haven't done my normal preamble, have I? So if anybody would like to have a little chat with me, so basically if you look at the QR code on the screen, that has links to all my social media, including my podcast. One of the things that on there is Discord. There is a live audio channel open. I'm now going to check that it is still open. Yes, it is. There's a live audio channel open. So if anybody would actually like to come and talk to me in audio, the voice will appear on this live stream. So only do it if that's what you want to happen. But click onto the QR code, join my Discord server, and you will find an audio channel running live, which if you join, we'll be able to have a little chat. Alternatively, you can do what Bow Street Society has done and send me messages via the Twitch app and the system built into Twitch for doing that. Yes. So what I'm going to do now is literally switch across. Oh, I need to just delete a couple of things off my screen, actually. You've got those excerpts okay, haven't you? So I don't need to keep those. Let me just drag those into my... Oh, no, it was playing silly buggers, wasn't it? It was being funny with you. So I won't delete them until I know you've got them, unless you've had the chance to do that now. I don't know why my computer seems to think I want to talk to Siri. I don't want to talk to Siri. Oh, you have got them. Okay. Right. Why does Siri keep appearing in my screen? Go away, you annoying AI. Okay. Okay, so, right, I've done that. You haven't played them, you've got them. That's good. So, what I'm going to do now is just get on with chapter 13. So this is called The Prolato. By the way, we'll be available 23rd to 25th of May. I have a funny feeling, and we've already looked into that, and I've... let me have a look. Um, oh, I don't know yet. Oh, no, no, that's the weekend after I go back to work. So I've got a fortnight off, the 5th to the 18th. And it all depends on what flights they have me on. So if I'm on a 6-day working block starting on the 19th, then I won't be. If I do a shorter working block, then I may be available for some of them, but I don't know yet. Basically, typical me, typical IUL. Um, but yes, I thought we'd vaguely looked at it. Yeah, because I'd already booked basically the week, as I've got the 5th to the 11th off as leave, and the 12th to the 18th off as part time week, or the other way around. I can't remember which code is which. Yeah, on my diary. So yeah, then I go back to work on the 19th, and it all depends on what I get. LUL, typical LUL. Ah, okay. So you have to type in. Oh, that's interesting. So you type in. But you have to teach me what that means. So you put in LUL and it gives you that. So would it do the same if I did that, or is that unique to you? Oh. Oh no. If I just put it without the spaces in it, it's okay. What others? What others can I do? Are there any others? Ah. Anyway, see, there's so much I need to learn about Twitch, but this isn't helping me get a chapter written. Right. Okay. I'll put that in with a sense of anticipation and dread in case it's something rude. I put it in and something weird came up on my screen. Oh. Oh dear, I can do Doritos. So if you do colon and then L, it'll give me any of those emoticon shortcuts that start with an L. So I can do lesbian pride, nice. Curse it, extra life. Oh, these are all gamey type stuff. Max lol, Mingli, mod love, whatever that means. Shady Lulu. This is a Shady Lulu apparently. I'm guessing that's the singer Lulu or someone called Lulu. Each channel has its own unique emotes for subscribers. Oh, I don't. Oh well. I shall have a look at these at some point. Let's see if I can find something vaguely amusing before I start writing. I'm not procrastinating at all now. Where's the colon gone? Oh dear. How come I've lost... I nearly said, how come I've lost my colon? That would have been a horrific accident, wouldn't it? But... Oh, I'm really obviously not in the mood for this because I'm now trying to find... Oh, no, too many dogs. Too many dogs. You didn't think I think there was such thing, right? So I can have... What? Some of these just seem random. Sorry, I will stop looking at these in a minute. Until when I find one I like, I shall put it up and then I shall get on with some work. That's rubbish. That's rubbish. D. No, I've already done that. E. What, when you have writer's block? Oh, okay. I just don't see... Oh, there's a dog there. That's quite nice. I'll send a dog. There we go. Right. Anyway, I shall stop doing that. And I haven't got writer's block now. I've just got... I just just don't want to start. And I should start because I'm not as in the mood for this as I have been because I've just woken up. And if I start, I will be finished sooner. Right, so let me whack you onto that view. And let's have a go at this. You can create your own emotes and upload them. Okay. That sounds kind of pointless. Oh dear. Right, chapter 13, the Prolato. Interestingly, I knew Prolato meant something, but I had to look it up because I couldn't remember it. And it is Latin, I think. And it's a Latin verb that means to lengthen, extend, or enlarge, which, given its role in the story, sort of makes sense. So I'm glad I had my brain plugged in when I made a decision. People can follow you on channel by clicking on your emote if someone else uses the emote in someone else's channel. I wouldn't even have thought of that. Okay, right. So anyway, chapter 13, the Prolato. Saywood lay on her mattress in the foul-smelling cellar. She could hear the creak of the stairs on the other side of the door, which meant that Sosie was on his way down to see her again. He'd done so on several occasions since yesterday, sometimes bringing her cold food on a plate, food that she could eat without using her hands, like an animal. I think that would be better as a separate sentence. But other than that, that's fine. The door opened and Sosie walked in. This time he was carrying a large tracksuit. What am I doing? This time he was carrying a tracksuit and a large black plastic bin liner. He loosened the rope around her wrist somewhat, then stood at the back of the room by the door. It should be loose enough for you to remove now. He smiled in the dim light and produced a revolver from his belt. Do not get any ideas, though. He pointed to the door at the far side of the room. There is a bathroom through there. Change your clothes. Put your dirty ones. Put the dirty ones. Put the dirty ones in the black bag. I will lock you inside and come back in 20 minutes. Saywood pulled at her bonds, and they did indeed fall away after a couple of tugs. She threw the rope to the floor. What are you going to do to me? I'm going to paint you, Miss Amapofo. I'm going to capture your likeness on canvas. Long after you are gone, people will still be able to look at you. It is a remarkable thing. Saywood picked up the cheap tracksuit. In this. Sosie nodded and then looked at his watch. The clock is ticking, Miss Amapofo. You have 20 minutes. Actually, that would make more sense if it said 19 now, wouldn't it? So I'm going to change. You just have just over 19 minutes. There we go. With a scowl, Saywood grabbed the tracksuit and a black bag and stepped through the door into the bathroom. It was of a reasonable size, and yet I haven't written that, so let me change it. It was of a reasonable size, and she was thrilled to see that there was a bath in there, as well as a shower cubicle. As she stripped off her dirty clothes, she heard the key turn in the lock behind her. The smell from her clothing was horrendous. Sosie had not allowed her to use the bathroom for almost 24 hours. She looked at what she removed with distaste, put all of it into the bin liner, and tied it closed. She stepped over to the shower, trying to ignore the smell coming from her body. She turned on the taps, and within moments a hot stream of water was gushing out. Sosie had provided her with a flannel and some soap. And so, after a few moments of just letting the hot water shower her, not water shower her body. That's run down. I'll run along. And so after a few moments of just letting the hot water run along her body, she used them to clean herself properly. She unbraided her hair and washed that too. Once she was done, she contemplated running a bath, but she was not sure what Sosie would do when her time ran out, and she didn't want to risk him entering while she was bathing. The images of what he had been intending to do to Rebecca flashed through her mind, and the sense of dread that it had retreated a little when she'd been under the hot water returned. He was going to kill her. She was sure of that, but it was what he might do to her beforehand that scared her the most. Her breath quickened and her chest tightened as the thoughts ran through her head, but she pushed them away. She grabbed the cheap blue tracksuit and pulled on the bottoms. Sophie had not provided her with any underwear. She put on the top and did up the zip. It was slightly too tight to be comfortable, and she was aware that the top especially clung to her body in a way that made her feel extremely self-conscious. She had no idea how long she had left. She considered sitting down, but she had no idea when she'd be allowed to walk around again, so she paced up and down the small area instead. After a few minutes, there was a knock on the door. "I'm going to let you out now. Please bring the bin liner. Do not attempt to try anything. I still have my gun." She heard the key turn. She picked up the bin liner by the neck, walked over to the door and opened it. Sosa was standing on the other side of the room. So was again standing on the other side of the room. In front of him there was now a large canvas on an easel and a small table containing several small pots of oil paint. Saywood stepped into the room and over to her stained mattress. "Put the bag next to you, on your left. Then sit down on the mattress, facing me. Have your legs slightly apart. Cross your arms and stare defiantly at me." Saywood dropped the bag but stayed standing. "I'm not going to pose for you." "You are." Sosie's voice seemed to get deeper and reverberate around the room. "Sit down on the mattress, facing me." The voice was compelling. Although she did not want to, she did as he said. "Legs slightly apart. Cross your arms." Saywood immediately did so. Sosie did not need to tell her to stare defiantly at him, though. "That is perfect, Miss Amapofo." He took a small paintbrush and some grey paint and started making some marks on the canvas. He used the brush to carefully mark out the horizontal lines on the picture and stood pondering over each line. "Oh, that's interesting. Hang on, let me just double check. Because normally I get an email to say we're reviewing it, and it will come up when it's been approved. I didn't put anything bad in it, so let's have a look. When did I say I did it? Do you remember? Because I get stupid amounts of emails now. It wasn't yesterday. Saturday or before? Let's have a look. I can't remember. Let me have a look on Saturday emails. Oh, hang on. I will just go back through our messages because I told you when I'd done it. Let me just have a look. March the 15th, whatever day that was. So I think you're right. That was Saturday. 9:38. I sent you a message to say, and I'd literally just done it. So let me just have a look. That's interesting. I can't see the confirmation email. Because normally you get one, don't you? So I wonder if I did something wrong. Let me just have a look. Amazon. It's very convoluted to find this book. I can't type in The Curse of the Fatal Floor. And even if I do put in your name and it gets me somewhere else completely. So the easiest way is to go in through you and then list all your products. Right, let's have a look. So Curious Client, no, not that one. It says, be the first to write a review. And I go into it and look, it's there. It is there. How bizarre. But try. Maybe I hadn't pressed submit. I'm now wondering that. I just have. Well, at least it didn't lose it. Not that it would have been a problem, because I had also got it on other social media. But then I haven't had a confirmation. Even when I did that, I still now haven't had a confirmation email. Because one of the reasons I did wonder about that was because I wondered if it might be quite good fun, because you can actually submit a video review now. So I did consider submitting a video review. So I have pressed submit. I haven't had a confirmation email, which is bizarre. So I normally get a confirmation email saying that you've submitted your review. And yet on the screen it says review submitted, which I'm sure I'd done before, because I remember it then gave me a list of all the things that on the screen that I haven't. Has it gone to your junk? I don't think so, but I can check that. No. I don't understand why that's happened. I mean, it's all sitting there, and I'll press submit again, and it says review submitted. But that's very weird. Okay, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I will just copy and paste it onto back onto my clipboard, and try submitting it from a different device. Okay, so it's now sitting on my notes, which I should be able to access off my laptop. Should be able to access off my laptop. Nothing. That's weird. It says I've got no notes. I have definitely got notes. What the hell is it doing? Oh no, okay, they've appeared now. That's weird. Right, so there we go. There's the review. Have you seen it elsewhere? So you've seen it's on Goodreads, and I don't know if you're on the other one, but right, let's just amazon.co.uk. Sign in? When did I last have to sign into this rubbish? Right. Not check Storygraph. Oh, for God's sake, it now wants to send me a code to my phone to let me sign into Amazon. Piss off, Amazon. Okay. Right, it's let me into Amazon. Right, let me go into orders. Delivered. Track package. Write a product review. And let's... It's there. It's on my laptop as well. It's already there. I don't understand. But as you say, it's still asking me if I'd like to be the first person to submit a review. So I don't understand what Amazon is doing. It just kind of supports what I think about Amazon, to be honest. I think I've just had a case of confirmation bias. Let's just have a look. Yeah, the way I tend to find it is I go to you, and then it comes up with most popular, and then it lists it there. But even here it's saying Would you like to be the first person to write a review? Which is just bollocks, isn't it? Because I have, and I did it I did it on Saturday, and it still hasn't appeared, which is stupid. You already reviewed another variant of this product. You have been redirected to edit that review. Ah. So it thinks I've done the review of the bloody ebook edition. Okay. Let's see if I can delete that. What a load of shit. Fucking hate Amazon, can you tell? Just going to close that window and go in there again. I literally don't understand what this, pardon my French, piece of shit website is doing. So it just goes to, as I say, it just goes to underscore why I can't bear them. And as I say, absolutely confirmation bias because I don't like them. So anything that underscores why I don't like them just goes to. But I don't understand why. So I've gone back to the writer product review, and yeah, it's still there. I don't know. I can't remember about your review not appearing there. No, I will email them, but I'm not going to do it now. Oh, sod it, I will do it now. Because otherwise I won't get round to it. Is there a contact page on here? Come on, where's the contact us button, you arseholes? Oh, hang on. What have you just sent me? If I can copy that off the... No, I didn't want to do that. Sorry, because my phone had switched itself off, that link you've just sent me, I can't actually get it. Because the only place I can see it is on my computer screen. There's nothing I can click on. If you could send it me again now my phone's behaving, that would be brilliant. Thank you. Right, I can see that now. Oh, God, now it wants me to sign in again. Yes. Right, so fix a problem with OK. How can I make this right? It says it's not a damaged item, defective item, too late. Right, so it's not giving me the option to complain about the fact that it's just looking through it. Something else. Okay, here we go. Pre-order questions, groceries on Amazon, Amazon physical stores, subscribe and save, Amazon business. I need more help. A review I wrote has not appeared. Cool, you're getting live to see help search results. Check the status of your refund. I haven't asked for a fucking refund. Right, let's... Hello?
Welcome to Amazon. Just to let you know, this call may be recorded to help us with training and quality improvements. After our call, you may receive a survey through email. Your feedback helps us improve our services. To connect to our customer service associates, please press 244. Your call is in queue and will be answered. Thank you for contacting Amazon customer service. I'm Shivani. May I have your first and last name?
Andrew Richards.
Thank you. Hi, Andrew. How are you doing?
Yeah, I've submitted a product review for something I bought 3 days ago, and it doesn't seem to have appeared on your website. I normally also get a confirmation email to say that I've submitted a review, and I haven't got any of these things. The reason it's important is it's a book by a friend of mine, and I would like that review to appear on the website.
Yeah, no worries, Andrew. I'll sort this out for you. Just give me a minute. I'm checking on that. And also, can you please tell me the name of the item?
Yes, it's a book called The Case of the Fatal Flaw, written by an author called T.G. Campbell, and I think it was delivered to me on the 3rd of March.
Yes, I can see that. So I need to escalate this details to my relevant team, Andrew. They'll look on to that. You don't need to worry. We'll make sure this is sorted out. Okay?
Can you see that I have attempted to submit a review? Can you see all that?
We cannot see all those things, but what I'll do for you is I'll straight away transfer the details to my specialist team about the review specialist team. So you don't need to worry. They'll get back to you within the next 24 hours with a possible solution from their end. So right now, all I request you to do is please wait for next 24 hours, okay?
Thank you very much for your help.
Yeah, just give me a minute while I quickly escalate the details to them.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello?
Yeah, I've successfully escalated this issue to my relevant team. They'll get back to you within the next 24 hours. You don't need to worry.
Thank you very much for your help.
Yeah. Also, is there anything else that I could assist you with?
No, that was the important thing. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for contacting Amazon. Have a great day.
Take care. Bye bye. Let's see if that makes any difference. Right. Saywood dropped the bag but stayed standing. I'm not going to pose for you. You are. Oh, God, wrong screen. Sosie's voice seemed to get deeper and reverberate around the room. Sit down on the mattress facing me. The voice was compelling. Although she did not want to, she did as she said. Legs slightly apart, cross your arms. Saywood immediately did so. Sosie did not need her to tell her to tell. So did not need to tell her to stare defiantly at him, though. That is perfect, Miss Amapofo. Oh, God, you haven't got it on the screen now. It's just a bit of a mess. Hang on. Yep. He took a small paintbrush and some grey paint and started making some marks on the canvas. And now I need to find... Twitch back on my phone. Oh no, that's just Amazon. There we go. He used the brush to carefully mark out horizontal lines on the picture and stood pondering after each line. Right, so hopefully the next page will be signed off a bit quicker. I can't decide whether or not to have you central in the picture, he said. It is of a poor girl in a rundown alleyway surrounded by rubbish. And I'm going to use the word filth instead of rubbish. A thought went through Saywood's mind. She'd been very careful not to form words in her head since she knew that he would be able to read them. Instead, she intended to count from 1 to 100 over and over again. But when he started saying the sentence that had started with, I can't decide, a very specific and horrible thought went through her mind unbidden. Sosie stopped for a moment and walked up to her. He cupped her chin in his hands. She found herself unable to move. No, you don't need to worry about that. If I'm honest, that is usually the fate that befalls my guests. Rebecca, when she comes in here, for example, I will do that to her. It says several times, but I think that just sounds a bit... I'll lose the several times. But not you. You're not my type. You remind me of my slaves. They were property, so they had no right to say no. Where's the fun in that? You're a pig, she said and spat at him. He moved his hand from her chin and struck her about the face. She was still unable to move. Do you know, I think bruises might add to the overall effect of the piece. Sosie smiled. You're an artist. I don't need to have... You're an artist. I don't need to have real bruises. You can add them, said Saywood. Sosie smiled. Now where's the fun in that? He said as he stared into her eyes. She did not see the fist coming until it made rapid and excruciating contact with her face. He took another swing and punched her in the cheekbone just below the eye as hard as he could, 2 more times. He stood back. Yes, that will look perfect, he said with a smile. That should have swollen nicely by tomorrow. The eye may even close up. He returned to the easel and was about to... See, this is why I'm really uncomfortable with having women... there's a lot of... I don't like... It's like not 2 consecutive chapters, but it's quite close together with 2 examples and just nasty violence against women, and I just don't like it being in there. I don't like it being in there once. I definitely don't like it being in there twice. I think that's probably why I didn't put it in the earlier chapter. I'll leave it for the moment. He returned to the easel and was about to pick up the brush one more time when he appeared to have a thought. I almost forgot something, he said, reaching into his pocket and pulling out her palato. I want you wearing this in the picture. He stepped forward and placed it around her neck, making sure the stone was never in contact with it, was not in contact with her skin, not never. He returned to the easel and looked across at her. He clapped his hand. Perfect, he cried, before picking up his brush and painting some more lines onto the canvas. It was almost dark outside by the time Isabel parked a car in a lay-by that was close to the footpath where she planned to form her final ritual. Just as she pulled on the handbrake and switched off the engine, her phone rang. Rebecca was not all that surprised to hear that the ringtone sounded like an old-fashioned telephone. Isabel pulled it from her handbag, hit the button to connect the call and put it to her ear. Jagvir. She paused as he gave her some information, which made her frown. Okay, that's interesting. I'm not sure it's at all helpful, but it is interesting. Thank you. She ended the call. What did he say? Asked Rebecca. All of these properties have clear chains of ownership and have changed hands in the last 20 years. They all belong to people we can trace back through national insurance data with dates of birth and a banking history. None of that means one of them can't be the building we're looking for. I guess that Sosi will have had to up his game in terms of a paper trail legitimising his various existences, especially since computers have become so widely used. Oh well. So what do we do now? We'll find a vantage point on the public bridleway that starts just down the lane. She pointed to a green sign a little way down the road. Come on. She walked quickly across the road and over to the green sign and turned down the path. Rebecca followed her for a couple of 100 yards with a clipboard and map. The bridleway had a line of trees down the left-hand side, and the first house that might contain Saywood was less than 50 metres away. Isabel slowed down, glancing at the map, and walked forward another 20 metres. This is the best spot, she declared. Why? Asked Rebecca. Look at the map. Each of the 5 buildings that she might be in are in a distinct direction from here. So when I've done the trace ritual, if we are right, whichever way we are facing will tell us exactly which building she is in. Then I'll report back to the Institute and we can plan our next move. We have to do something now. Don't be an idiot, snapped Isabel. I can't take on this man by myself. He's extremely powerful. It will have to be several of us together. If we try by ourselves, then I will end up dead, and I dread to think what he will do to you. Is Saywood worth that risk? Rebecca tried to stop herself from crying again. Yes, she is, she blurted out defiantly. But you're right. It's better to wait. Let's just lose anything after that, but you're right. Isabel nodded. And don't you forget it again. Okay, let's do this. Isabel started to turn again on the spot with her eyes closed, Saywood's prelato in one hand. Rebecca noticed she was muttering her words much more quietly this time compared to before, and that her other hand, which usually held the compass, was empty. Isabel turned a few times and then slowed down. She was facing slightly to the left and not towards the house in front of them. Map, whispered Isabel, clicking her fingers. Rebecca passed it to her, and Isabel traced the direction that she was looking at with her finger. So it's that one, she said. Rebecca had a pencil ready, and she drew a small ring around the L-shaped building that was in reality about half a mile away. It has to be that one. Rebecca looked in the direction that Isabel had been facing. She could see some large chimney stacks in the distance beyond another line of trees. That one? Yes, said Isabel with certainty. Rebecca nodded. Or that outbuilding there. She pointed directly ahead. In the same direction as the building that Isabel had identified was an old barn. It looked like it needed a lick of paint and some minor repairs, but other than that it was in good condition. It was close to the building on the other side of the trees. It was quite close to the building on the other side of the trees that marked the boundary between the property and the path. It was not shown on the map. Isabel rolled her eyes. Well, technically yes, it could be that barn too. So what do we do now? I should imagine it's the large building, stated Isabel, but you are correct, it could be any outbuilding between here and there. Rebecca had already called up a satellite photograph of the area on her phone. Look, she said, indicating with a finger a straight line between their position, which was marked with a blue dot, and the large house that Isabel had identified. There was only one building between them and the house, and it was the barn. Okay, we'll walk to the barn, past it, and do the trace one last time, said Isabel, just to make sure. Are we trespassing? Asked Rebecca. Yes, said Isabel. She walked to the edge of the path. As well as the trees, there was a small wire fence. She followed the fence until there was a bit of a break in the trees, fell away from the main house. The barn was now slightly on their right. Here, she said decisively, we will cross the fence here. And with that, Isabel gripped the top wire of the fence, which was not barbed, thankfully, and stepped over. Come on, she said urgently. Rebecca climbed over after her. They walked towards the barn, both of them looking towards the main house, but nobody seemed to have noticed them. Better to walk with confidence than run, said Isabel. We look less suspicious that way. They soon reached the other side of the barn, with it between them and the house. Isabel looked for the chimneys above the tree line, but now they were close, she could not see them. She found a flat piece of ground and stood on it. You keep watch, she demanded of Rebecca, who nodded vigorously. Isabel closed her eyes, held the Prelato and started to spin. She allowed whatever it was that she was sensing to wash over her. With her eyes closed, it was rather like she was homing in on a bright light through her eyelids. As she turned, she was aware of a glow that revolved as she did. Slowly she stopped at the brightest point of the glow and opened her eyes. The sight made her gasp. She was facing the barn. "Oh, shit," she muttered. Rebecca's eyes opened wide. Isabel dashed over to her. "Be very, very quiet indeed." "She's in there!" Isabel looked terrified. "Yes, and almost certainly so is Max Sosi. If he finds us, he will kill us. So please shut up and let's get out of here. Now!" "Sayward!" shouted Rebecca shouted. "You moron!" hissed Isabel. "Come with me this instant. I will leave you here to die, you foolish, foolish girl." Rebecca had run around to the front of the barn where the door was. To run around to the front. Oh no, that's just a little bit wobbly in the wording. Let's just tidy that up. Isabel run round the front of the barn to where the front door was. That's better. Isabel took one last look after, shook her head, and then started running the other way as fast as she could towards the path and the safety of the car. Rebecca ran to the entrance, to the barn entrance, to the barn door. It's just to the barn door. "Sayward!" she cried again, flinging herself towards the door. Flinging herself. Flinging herself forward. She stumbled as she got there and fell to the floor. She opened her eyes a second later. She was face down on the ground with the door ahead of her. She looked up and noticed something hanging from a nail next to the door. It looked like a piece of leather cord. Rebecca stood up, brushing the dirt from her forehead. Calmer now, she examined the object. It had a stone hanging from the end. It looked a bit like Sayward's, but that was impossible, since Isabel had that. She unhooked it from the door and examined it. It did not look it did not look a bit like Sayward's. It looked exactly like hers. She pushed the door open cautiously and peered in. The barn was empty. There was some farm machinery in there. Rebecca had no idea what it was for, and a couple of horse carriages. She shook her head and turned around. There was a figure bearing down on her. "You are lucky to be alive," seethed Isabel. "I ran. Had Sosie been in there, I may have survived. You certainly would not have done." "So why did you come back?" "Well, I'm not a lily-livered scoundrel," said Isabel. "Once I saw what you saw, I knew that we were safe. You were broadcasting your thoughts. You always do, but usually I shut them out. So when I saw the empty barn through your eyes, I came back. Show me what you found." Rebecca pulled the necklace from her pocket. Isabel did the same. They looked identical. "We were tricked," said Isabel finally. "Sosie must have had access to the real one. He clearly has the ability to duplicate things. Instead of taking us to Sayward, this one pointed us to its twin." "This?" asked Rebecca. "Yes. There is only one way to be sure." Isabel dropped her stone to the ground. "Hand me yours, then watch." She got onto her knees and then leaned down until her face was 6 inches from the necklace on the ground. Rebecca did the same. "What are you looking at?" "Watch." Isabel dropped the prelato that Rebecca had found on the door. Rebecca found Let's Stream. Let's just change that slightly. Isabel dropped the prelato that Rebecca had found directly onto the other one. As soon as they touched, both vanished. There was no noise, nothing. They were suddenly just not there anymore. "Wow," said Rebecca, standing up. What happens now? "We can start again tomorrow. I will need something else of Sayward's." Isabel grabbed Rebecca's arm and pulled her towards the fence. "Come on, some lights are coming in the house. We need to not be here." "She's not in the other house." "So she's not in the other house?" "No," affirmed Isabel as she marched them to the fence. "The ritual was pointing me to the duplicate prelato. Haven't I already explained that?" The two girls climbed over the fence and headed along the bridleway back to the car. Right, that's chapter... whatever that one is. That's chapter 13. So let me just do the normal nonsense with that. And then I really need to get a crack on because I want to try and get 2 more done tonight. Grammarly I need. Yay. Why is it questioning the spelling of Soci today? Right, goody goody. So download. It's not going to give me the shit it did yesterday. That's good. Right, chapter 13 is almost there. Let me just... Oh, God, no, not that. Right, that's chapter 13. Let me just drag it into the correct folder. So there we go. Let's do chapter 14. So these are all quite short ones apart from the last one, and that's only 11, so that's not so bad. So Saturday the 18th of August 1923. Hey Siri, what year was the... Hey Siri, what day was the 18th of August 1923?
It was Saturday, the 18th of August, 1923.
Fab. Chapter 14, Sosie's Revenge. Flies buzzed around something on the ground in McGee Street as Edward Smith strode purposefully past whatever it was with a slight limp. He'd grown into a tall, approachable and kind-looking young man, and thanks to making a monumentous and life-changing decision earlier in the year, he had also grown in confidence. He was wearing shorts, it was the middle of the summer, and a white collared shirt, which had some stains on it. However, this was acceptable since he was coming home from work. He had promised Ethel that he would buy a loaf of bread from the baker on the way, although he was not certain there would be any left at just gone 5 o'clock. It had been a strange personal journey that brought him here to Northampton. The girl that he'd saved from becoming the next victim of Max Sosie, the man behind the disappearance of Molly Clark, had walked him home immediately after they had met. Edward had almost passed out after Sosie had hit him around the head with his cane. The first thing his father had done was beat him. Ethel had not seen it, but she heard it as she walked away from the small house in Folkestone. She decided to check on her every now and then, and he slowly became the little brother she never had. For the next year she went to see him every week and took him out for an ice cream or a bar of chocolate whenever she could afford to. Neither of them had an easy time during the Great War. Ethel's sweetheart, Philip, came back on leave a few times, and on each occasion he would take her to visit his parents in Northampton, and Edward would not see her for a while. Then the worst thing happened, at least as far as Edward was concerned. Philip proposed to her, she said yes, they married, and she moved to Northampton. Edward assumed that he would never see her again, but was pleased when he received a letter a couple of weeks later, which he replied to. From that point they wrote to each other regularly, which is how Edward knew that she had given birth to a little boy called David. It was how she knew that Philip's parents had died in a fire. It was how she knew Philip had been killed in a trench in Flanders. Stupid Flanders. No. Ethel persevered. When the number of men and boys available for work dropped, she got a job with Crockett & Jones, a shoe manufacturer that made boots for army officers fighting in France. She was as tough as the items she was making and fiercely independent. The month that Ethel had been told that Philip had died was also the month that Edward's mother received the telegram saying that Alfie had been killed in action. He had fought for over 2 years, which was 2 years more than his father had assumed he would. There was no body to bury. Dennis became more drunk and abusive. Edward shared his thoughts and feelings with Ethel in his letters. The war ended, and Dennis became ill, but he still found the strength to beat and bully Mavis and Edward. Edward had some broken teeth and walked with a slight but permanent limp thanks to his father. On one occasion, Mavis had been so badly hurt that she had almost died. In 1922, Edward turned 14 and was able to leave school and get a job. Ethel still took the time to correspond as often as they could. On one occasion, Edward had his wages stolen on the way home from work. Dennis beat him so badly he could not walk for a month. It would have been less, but Dennis tried kicking him out of bed twice in that time to try and make him go back. When Edward told Ethel about this in his next letter, her reply contained a postal order for the bus fare to Northampton. He arrived there 3 days later. She helped him from the bus station to a small home, paid for with what she'd inherited from Philip and his parents, and there Edward recuperated properly. Once he was better, she helped him to secure a job with Crockett and Jones. He helped her pay the bills and was like a father to her little son David. Edward liked his life now. He used to write home to his mother every month when he first arrived, but that had dwindled to every 2 or 3 months now because he never got a response. He doubted it was laziness on her part. It was more likely that Dennis would not let her have money for a stamp, preferring to spend it on ale. He stopped at the corner and looked into the baker's shop. As he had expected, there were no full loaves of bread left for sale, but there were some rolls, so he took 6 of those instead and walked the rest of the day home with a brown paper bag tucked under his arm and whistling. As he got to the corner of the row of terraced houses that included the one he lived in with Ethel, a car drove past on the road. They were starting to be a more common sight now than they had been when he was young. But the reason they noticed this one was because it seemed... This printing is terrible. Familiar to him. It was a 1912 Crossley Model 15 green with a cream-coloured hood, exactly like the one he had seen Max Sosi driving twice 8 years ago. He stared after the vehicle as it pulled away from him, wishing that he could see what the driver looked like, but it was too far away, and he thought that running after it would be dangerous, especially if it was Max Sosi. He opened the door to the house. It was the only one on their side of the street with a yellow door, and entered. Ethel was inside, trying to prepare some food, do some laundry, and watch David as he zoomed around the place armed with a wooden gun. "Uncle Eddie!" yelled the boy. Edward gave him a cheery wave. "Hello, little soldier," he called back. "Are you winning the war?" David went on into some explanation about what he was doing that made no sense at all. Ethel smiled at him and then picked up the basket of washing in order to hang it on the washing line. "Let me do that," said Edward, taking the basket from her and walking into the kitchen at the back. He put the rolls on the worktop, grabbed the peg bag from the hook on the wall, and put it on top of the basket, and held it to his body with one hand whilst using the other to open the door. He entered the small garden and started hanging out the washing on the line. Ethel came out and watched him. "Was today okay?" Edward smiled. "The boss approached me about training to be a pattern cutter," he said with a smile as he pegged a bed sheet out on the line. Ethel gave a broad grin. "That's really good, Eddie. They don't offer that to anyone. Better pay too." Edward nodded. He did not formally pay Ethel rent. He just gave her his wages every Friday, and she gave him an allowance for beer or cakes or whatever he wanted to spend it on. He never spent it on beer. He loathed what his father had done to his family, and even though he believed that he was a better person, he did not want to run the risk that he would turn out anything like him. Ethel made small talk with him as he hung out the washing. He contemplated telling her about the car he'd seen, but he could not be sure and he did not want to worry her. David ran out to the garden and grabbed hold of his leg. Edward pretended not to understand why his leg was suddenly so much heavier, and he walked along the length of the line, moaning about his heavy leg, which caused squeals of laughter from David and more smiles from Ethel. Although she was almost 10 years his senior, Edward adored Ethel. She felt the same way about him. Edward was kind and reliable and brilliant with David. They were both too scared to tell the other because they were terrified of ruining their friendship. That never happens. Dinner that evening was Saturday pie. The name still upset Edward because of what had happened with his father all those years ago, so Ethel always referred to it as leftover pie. It was unusual for Edward to work on a Saturday. The factory usually operated Monday to Friday, but they received an unusually large order from the military. Unusually large since the war had ended, that was, and the management encouraged people to pick up the extra shifts at the weekend. He had done one today, and Ethel was doing one tomorrow. As they ate, Edward thought again about the car he had seen earlier. Sosie had never been formally linked to Molly's disappearance, and he'd moved away from his home in Folkestone a few months after the incident with Ethel. As far as Edward knew, there'd been no other instances of girls going missing in the area that could be tied back to Sosie, but it still worried him. The following Tuesday, David fell over and cut his leg quite badly, so Edward was sent out to find a family friend that could help. They were not at home, but a neighbour said he expected them back in about 20 minutes, so Edward left a message and started the short walk back to his own house. It was 8 o'clock in the evening, it had been a cloudy day, and it was already starting to get dark. As Edward walked past a public house, he saw the car again, the same Crossley Model 15 that he'd seen the other day. It was not occupied, and Edward considered waiting to see who the owner was, but with Ethel at home worrying about David and the help he'd arranged not due for another half an hour, he decided that being with her was more important. He was walking past the car when a man stepped out of the door of the pub, and Edward could not stop staring. It was indeed the same man from 8 years ago, the last person who he had seen with Molly Clark, and the man that had tried to persuade Ethel into his car. Even worse, he was accompanied by a young lady in a cheap-looking and patched coat. He stopped in front of them. "If this man said that he will paint you, run away fast," said Edward loudly. "He made my friend Molly the same offer, and she was never seen again." Sosie narrowed his eyes. "You, the annoying little brat." The girl tensed. "So you know him?" "Passing acquaintance, nothing more," said Sosie. The girl looked at Edward. "Just run," urged Edward. "Get away from here." There was something in the intensity of what he was saying that she could not argue with. The girl left quickly, breaking into run as she reached the corner of the street. "What happened to Molly?" shouted Edward. Sosie shook his head. "As I told the police many years ago now, I painted her, then she left. There is nothing else to say. She never came back home," cried Edward. Sosie shook his head. "Nothing to do with me." He opened the car door and climbed behind the wheel and started the engine. He started to accelerate away, but Edward ran after him. "Where's Molly?" shouted Edward. "What did you do to her?" In the driving seat, Sosie shook his head and stopped the car. Edward ran forwards. Sosie looked at him through the back window and made a decision. He smiled nastily and used the gear stick to select reverse. As Edward approached, Sosie suddenly drove back towards him. Edward did not have time to even realise what was happening before the car hit him, and he was knocked backwards onto the road. Sosie stepped out of the car. Edward was lying in the street crying in pain. His right leg had been run over by the rear left-hand wheel. Sosie walked over to him and looked around the street. It was empty, but that would soon change with the amount of noise Edward was making. "You don't know when to stop, do you, you foolish boy?" He raised the cane and beat Edward's head savagely 3 times. Edward stopped making any noise and lay insensible on the floor. Sosie placed his cane on the passenger side of the front seat and opened the rear passenger door. He lifted Edward into the car and shoved him onto the back seat before shutting the door. He returned to the driving seat and drove away slowly. When Edward awoke, he was in a room with no windows, so he guessed that he was in a cellar. There was an agonising pain in his right leg, which took him a few minutes to get used to. When he did, he looked up to see a man with an easel on the other side of the room. He tried to stand, but discovered that he could not move any part of himself, apart from his head. He looked down at his body. He was seated in a wooden chair, and he had been expecting to see some kind of restraint holding him in place. There was none. He looked up and remembered what had happened. "You!" he cried. The artist looked up. "Yes, Edward. Edward Smith of Folkestone in Kent. 8 years ago I had to leave Folkestone very quickly, because of you." Edward wanted to struggle, but was physically unable to move. "What did you do to Molly?" he asked wearily. Sosie took on a conversational tone. "I suppose it's okay to tell you now, as you won't be leaving here." He put down the paintbrush and took an empty chair that was the same as the one that Edward was sitting on and placed it in front of him. He sat down a few feet away from it. He said of him and met it. Let me do that sentence again. Sosie took on a conversational tone. "I suppose it's okay to tell you now, as you won't be leaving here." He put down the paintbrush and took an empty chair that was the same as the one. Let's lose the that. And placed it in front of him. He sat down a few feet away from Edward and met his gaze. "You apparently saw her getting into my car that Saturday. I drove her to my home with the promise of painting her. Her clothes were a mess, so I let her change into a beautiful velvet dress. Over the next 10 days I painted her. I also raped her. Several times over those 10 days. When I was happy with the picture, I killed her. She suffered greatly, my little friend. By the time I ended her life, she wanted to die." Edward started to cry softly. "Why? Why would you do that?" Sosie smiled at him as though he had admitted to something as insignificant as eating a third biscuit. "I was hurt by a woman once. Many years ago, a woman responsible for taking everything that mattered from me. Initially, I did it for revenge. But over the centuries, I realised that I enjoy the pain and fear in their eyes." "Murderer! Multiple murderer," corrected Sosie. "I'm going to paint you." "I like the idea of painting a crippled boy in his wheeling chair." He gave another smile. "They will never find your body, little Edward." "I'm not a cripple," said Edward. "I have a broken foot, that's all." That is very true, said Sosie nastily. He stood and walked to a dark corner of the room where there was a brown blanket, which he pulled away. It says Sosie, but he would be better. Which he pulled away. Beneath it was a woodsman's axe. Sosie picked it up, then walked back to the chair and sat down. He put the axe on the floor, the metal making a loud noise as it hit the stone. "I am going to hurt you, Edward. You have caused me too much trouble, and if I were to let you go, I would have to move on again. I don't want to do that." Just lose the exclamation mark there. He rose to his feet and stood at an angle in front of Edward, tapping his right angle with the tip of the axe. He lifted it above him and swung it down and to the side using his full weight. Edward yelled out in pain as the first swing almost severed his right foot. The second completed the job. Edward screamed, but Sosa was not done. He turned the axe and swung it at Edward's legs, hitting them with a blunt end over and over again. Swinging at them rather than hitting them. Edward yelled out in pain as the first swing almost severed his right foot. The second completed the job. Edward screamed, but Sosa was not done. He turned the axe and swung it at Edward's legs. Oh. Edward screamed, but Sosa was not done. He turned the axe and swung at Edward's legs with the blunt end over and over again. Edward yelled, and Sosa smiled, eventually placing the axe back in the corner. He stepped back behind the canvas. The picture was almost done. It was a simple painting. It had a black background and a foreground, and in the foreground was a boy sitting in a wheeling chair, his feet on the wooden footrests at the front. The clothes were not like the ones that Edward was wearing. The young man in the painting had long trousers and suspenders over his white shirt. But the oddest thing, given how much detail every other element of the painting contained, was that the boy had no face. There was just white canvas in the shape of a face where it should have been. Edward had stopped screaming. He was in shock and was starting to slip into unconsciousness. Sosa released the body. Sosa released the body from the charm that had been holding. Edward had stopped screaming. He was in shock and was starting to slip into unconsciousness. Sosa released Edward's body from the charm that had been holding it. Released Edward's body from the charm that had been holding it in place and cursed. He had overdone it. He'd planned to change Edward into clothes similar to the ones depicted in the picture, but there was no time. Edward was shedding too much blood. He would have to be quick. Sosa dragged the easel so it was next to the slumped and bloodied form. He gripped the side of the canvas and placed his full hand over Edward's face. There was still breath, thankfully. If the boy died before the incantation was complete, he would have to dispose of the body the hard way. Sosa closed his eyes and started to speak. The words sounded like that of a made-up language, which in a way they were. He could feel the breath behind his hand weakening, but he could not rush what he was doing. If he uttered one syllable incorrectly, he would have to start again, and Edward might very well be dead by the time he finished. Sosa made sure that he was breathing calmly as he spoke the words that he had created. He was getting close to the end now. The boy was still alive, though he doubted he had much time left. He reached the final syllable and opened his eyes. There was a bright flash of light, and Edward vanished in front of him. All that was left was some blood and a full shoe. Sosa stared at the painting. The boy in the wheeling chair now had a face. Sosa smiled. That had been close. He looked with distaste at the way the picture had changed. It no longer depicted a boy in long trousers, but one in short trousers with smashed legs and a missing right foot. He ran his fingers along the brushwork. It looked exactly like it would have done had he painted the details himself. He went over to the table with the oil paints. And started mixing a colour that was the same as the shoes that the original painting had depicted. Soon he would restore the image that looked exactly like it had before. Anyone looking at the picture would not know the difference. Sosa hummed to himself as he started to apply fresh paint to the canvas. What a rotter. Right, let's get that one done. Oops, so file, export to Word. Yes. Drag it into Grammarly. God, there's so little errors in them. I say I've done these chapters to death, but it's good that there's so little errors coming out because it means it doesn't take very long. Right, let's minimise that. Let's open that in Word, copy and paste it into notes. And finally paste it back into the original document, sort out the formatting. What's that doing? Why is that different? Oh, because I've gone to document, not format. Okay. Right then. Oop, why has that done that? Oh, bollocks. That's a French word. It means oops. Right, let's just reformat that because I've clearly done something stupid. Let's sort that out. So lines 2 and text 11. Right. There we go, that's chapter 14 signed off. I have one more to do to hit my deadline today, so that's looking more and more likely. And this next one is, I like this next chapter actually, it's called The Screaming Walls. And then that gets me, my goodness, I get to a really interesting point tomorrow. If I do my 3. In fact, it'd be quite nice to do an extra one tomorrow. But we shall see. So we're back on the 27th of February 2018. Hey Siri, what day is the 27th of February 2018?
It was Tuesday, the 27th of February 2018.
Fabulous, I didn't make a mistake there either. Right, chapter 15, The Screaming Walls. For some reason, Tuesday morning... Did I have any... Let me just double check something. No. Okay. For some reason, Tuesday morning had been very busy at This and Tat. Jagvir was constantly running items through the till, and Geraldine had to restock whilst they were open, pushing through people to get to the clothes rails and shelves. She usually fed new stock through in drips and drabs throughout the day. It calmed down over the lunch hour, and then in the afternoon the number of people visiting the shop returned to the usual level of almost nobody. Geraldine had received a phone call from Isabel just before the shop had opened. Isabel told her that she was expecting a delivery today, but was cagey about what it was. Geraldine knew that Isabel had called the Institute archive yesterday evening and asked for a specific artefact to be loaned to her. The person she'd spoken to had not been able to authorise a request and passed it to someone who could. Passed it on to someone who could. But passed it on to someone who could. Geraldine assumed that Isabel had been informed by now if her request had been approved, but she had not told her. Isabel was busy. Said anything. She assumed that Isabel had been informed by now if her request had been approved, but she had not said anything to Geraldine. Isabel was busy and she was brilliant at what she did, but sometimes she was bloody rude. During lunch break, Geraldine checked the Leicester Mercury website to see what had drawn everyone into the city centre that morning whilst enjoying a cup of tea and a cinnamon whirl. At 2:30 that afternoon, when it became apparent that the madness of the morning was not going to be repeated, someone entered the shop. It was a woman in her late 50s, dressed in a smart business suit and a neat black suede coat. She had short dark hair and tiny earrings. She carried a large handbag in one hand, umbrella in the other, and she strolled straight up to the counter. "Mr. Jagvir Singh, my name is Meredith Lawson. I have an artefact from the archive which I am delivering for Isabel Myerscough. I've been asked to hand it directly to Geraldine Watkins. Is she here?" Jagvir smiled. "She's in the storeroom. Shall I bring her out here, or shall I take you in there?" "I will go in there," stated Meredith. "Certainly," said Jagvir. He poked his head through and saw Geraldine sitting in front of the computer, browsing the internet and eating. "Mrs. Lawson is here to see you." Geraldine stood up. Meredith Lawson was not just an employee of the Institute Archive, she was its director, as well as being on the ruling committee of the Sutherland Institute. Ruling committee? Do I like that phrase? Governing. Geraldine stood up. Meredith Lawson was not just any employee of the Institute Archive; she was its director, as well as being on the governing committee of the Sutherland Institute. She knew about and indeed had probably been instrumental in discovering the origins of the majority of the artefacts in the archive. It was more than just a museum. Some of the objects it contained were extremely dangerous. What on earth had Isabel asked for? Meredith stepped through the beaded curtain. Geraldine stood up. "It's a pleasure, Mrs. Lawson. Can I get you a tea or coffee?" Meredith shook her head. "My time is limited." She had quite a gravelly voice, and although she looked pristine, Geraldine could smell cigarette smoke on her breath. Meredith opened a handbag and pulled out a small polished wooden box, rather like a pencil case. There was a 5-digit number engraved on the surface. Meredith opened the box to allow Geraldine to see what it contained. It was a small paintbrush, about the size of a pencil. It was quite old, but there was no sign of paint on it, as though its owner had cleaned it thoroughly after every use. Geraldine shook her head. "So you think it's true? You think that Max Sosi is alive?" "I know it's true," stated Meredith. I had someone run a trace using this item. It was known to belong to Sosi before we executed. Well, she said quietly, before we thought we had. He is in this area somewhere. What do we do now?" asked Geraldine. She was slightly in awe of the object in front of her. It was a terrifying reminder that someone extremely dangerous was at large. "When you give it to Isabel, please ask her to contact me directly." Meredith pulled a business card from her bag and placed it inside the box with a paintbrush. Geraldine agreed, then closed her eyes. "Are we going after him?" Meredith nodded. "We have to. Isabel coordinate. I am her link to the committee, and when she works out what resources she requires, she can negotiate that with me." Meredith allowed her face to relax somewhat. "She knows all of this. Please tell her that you have the item immediately." With that, Meredith turned and left the room. Jagger put his head through the curtain. "Everything okay?" he asked. Geraldine shook her head. "Max Sosi is still alive, and we're going to have to deal with him. Can you telephone Isabel and tell her that the item she requested from the archive has arrived?" Jagger nodded. "What is it?" "Personal effect that belonged to Sosi." She handed him the box. He opened it and looked at the innocent-looking item it contained. "This was his?" "Yes." Jagger shook his head. "And we're going after him," he muttered to himself. "Bloody hell. Would you like a brandy? I think I need one." "You think this warrant... Geraldine pursed her lips. "Usually I would say no, but I think... You think this warrants it?" Geraldine looked sad. Yes, I do." She stared at the wooden box again and shook her head. "Better make it double." Max Sosi stood in front of his easel in the basement, applying paint to the canvas before him. Saywood sat on the filthy mattress, the bag containing her dirty clothes still next to her. The left-hand side of her face had swollen up, and her eye had closed. Today was the second day that Sosi had spent painting. He told her that he had told her that he thought he would finish either tonight or tomorrow. The comment had been laced with an undertone of threat. When he was finished, he was going to kill her. "As I indicated to you yesterday, your fate will be slightly less unpleasant than the one my subjects usually meet. Once the picture is finished, and indeed during the process, I usually play with them. There have been 1 or 2 exceptions over the years, when they're not my type, like you. Some of my victims have been young men, often when they've got close to working out that I'm responsible for the loss of one of their friends. I hurt them, of course, but not in the same way." "Little boys not your thing?" said Edward sarcastically. "Little boys, ugly girls, girls with skin that's the wrong colour, not my thing at all." "So you're not just racist, you're a misogynist as well?" "If you like," said Sosi, washing his brush and then mixing some other colours onto his palette. "Someone will find me," said Saywood. "The police for a start, and there was an investigator following you as well." "Mr. Walsh, he knows little." Sosi frowned at the words that appeared in her head. "As for his employer, I have no idea who Sir Teddy Ainsley is." Saywood frowned, then raised her eyebrows questioningly. "You don't seem to have the ability to stop broadcasting," said Sosi. He glanced into her mind again and realised that she was in pain from a cramp in her leg. The fight seemed to have drained from her, and so after a moment, whilst he considered his options, he made a decision. "You may stand and stretch." Saywood looked relieved and carefully stood up. She stretched the leg that had the cramp and rubbed her sore muscles. Sosi allowed her a couple of minutes. "Is that better?" "Much," Saywood admitted. "If you behave, I will continue to allow you freedom of movement," he said. "Thank you," replied Saywood somewhat sarcastically. However, she did sit back down and arrange herself in the pose that he'd held her in, so that he continued to paint. There was no point in antagonising him. The freedom to stretch her legs if they became painful again was worth the appearance of compliance. "So why'd you paint people?" "I have painted almost all of my victims," he said with a smile as he added a touch of white to the colour he was mixing. "There are several reasons. Firstly, I enjoy it. Secondly, I enjoy the subject's anticipation of what I'm going to do to them next. The main one, though, is that I do not have to dispose of the bodies once I've finished with them." Saywood shook her head. "Why not?" Sosie grinned and ran his brush gently into the newly mixed colour. "Because rather than kill my victims, I put them in the pictures just as they approach their moment of death. They are literally trapped in the canvas." Saywood's mind raced. It sounded ludicrous, but then a couple of weeks ago the idea of a necklace that amplified thoughts to the point where she could hear them would have sounded crazy too. "It sounds nasty." "I have no idea. I've never experienced it," said Sosie. "But over the years, to be accurate, over the centuries, I have painted hundreds of my victims." Sosie glanced into her mind again. The fight did seem to have gone from her. "I have a gallery here," he said. "I could show you." Saywood grimaced. "No, thanks." Sosie shook his head. "I insist." He put the palette down on the table with the small pots of paint. "Stand up." Saywood uncrossed her arms and put her knees together, but did not stand up. But did not stand. Let's lose the word up. But did not stand. Sosie turned to face her. "Don't make me make you." Reluctantly, Saywood pushed herself upwards. Sosie made a point of opening the door for her. "Wait at the top of the stairs," he said as she walked slowly up them, feeling ridiculous in the tight tracksuit. The staircase ended with a small landing and another door. Saywood opened the door and stepped through. She gasped slightly as she entered the main hall of the house. From what she could see, the word house did not do this building justice. The room that she had stepped into was 2 stories high and had a grand staircase in the middle that up to a balcony that went around the perimeter of the next floor. Several doors and at least one corridor ran away from each of the 2 walls that were perpendicular to the staircase on both levels. There were tall windows at the height of both floors on either side behind the stairs, and further windows that ran from floor to ceiling on the upstairs landing. Saywood glanced around the hallway. There were lots of items on the walls and in large display cabinets, but the one thing she expected in a hallway this size was artwork, and there was not a single piece. There were suits of armour and mannequins in stunning clothing at various locations. The cabinets were full of decorated plates and ornaments, but the hall looked bare, with no paintings. Sosie closed the door to the cellar behind him. He glanced into Saywood's mind and was surprised by what she was thinking. Here was a girl who knew she was going to die soon. It was not that she was not scared. He could see the fear in her. But she had... The best way to describe it was she had locked the fear in a box in the corner of her mind and was attempting to ignore it. The main thought he could see at the moment was surprised at the lack of paintings hanging from the wall. "I don't like other people's paintings," he explained. "Hundreds of years ago, I had artworks on display, none of my own, but I've been doing this such a long time that works by other people simply irritate me. Tiny inconsistencies of style or form leap out at me. I've got to the point where I prefer to display the drawings of a child because at least with them I can forgive their imperfections." "So you don't display your own work?" said Saywood. "When I designed this hall, that was my approach. In most of my other properties, you will find my pictures displayed throughout. When I purchased this house, however, someone had recently made the connection that my paintings were of people that had disappeared." He walked forwards to a small pair of intricately patterned curtains on runners. Saywood had initially dismissed them as a dull tapestry. So he pulled open the curtains, and a picture was revealed hidden behind it. It was from the early 1800s and was of a man in a blue double-breasted coat with brass buttons. Beneath was a white frilled shirt. The man was clean-shaven and had black hair. "Mr. Raymond Hayter," said Sosie. "I think that I was responsible for the loss of one of his daughters. He was a very persistent man. I stopped him." Saywood shivered but said nothing. Sosie continued. "In this house I have a gallery on the top floor at the back. I rarely take guests there. You will be one of the carefully chosen few to ever see it." "And why do I have that honour?" "It is a selection of my best work. Not necessarily the best artwork, you understand, but the most interesting subjects, the ones that resisted the most or screamed the loudest." He gestured to the grand staircase and she started to climb it. Sosie followed. "You are a very interesting subject, Mrs. Amapofo. You have the potential to be one of the most powerful members the Institute has ever had, but I can see that you don't want any of that. I have respect for that position." They reached the top of the stairs, and Saywood stopped, as she did not know where to go next. "I think that they would have made it impossible for you not to join them through a combination of persuasion and guilt. If they are to take me on, they will undoubtedly need you. You couldn't do it without them, and equally they could not do it without you." Sosie pointed at the corridor on the right, and Saywood started to walk down it. "So, to use modern parlance, by taking you out of the equation, I have dodged a bullet. I'm very pleased that I found you first. Some people have all the luck," Saywood muttered under her breath. The dark corridor they were in had doors on either side, but only one window at the far end, which was next to a further flight of stairs. Sosie pointed to them, and Saywood climbed them. He followed close behind, and led her down the corridor at the top, which, as far as Saywood could tell, was immediately above the ones they just walked along. It ended sooner, though, and Sosie overtook her to approach the door at the far end. He took a key from his pocket. "My private gallery," he explained, unlocking the door. He held it open, and Saywood stepped through. "Some people have all the luck," Saywood muttered under her breath. The dark corridor they were in had doors on either side, but only one window at the far end, which was next to a further flight of stairs. Sosie pointed them, and Saywood climbed them. He followed close behind, then led her down the corridor on the top floor, a corridor which, as far as Saywood could tell, was immediately above the one they just walked along. It ended sooner, though, and Sosie overtook her as they approached a door at the far end. He took a key from his pocket. That's better. "My private gallery," he explained, unlocking the door. He held it open, and Saywood stepped through. The room was much longer than it was wide. There were tall windows at both ends, and with thick curtains pulled across them that completely obscured any light from outside. And on the two long walls, unbroken on the far side and only stopping for the entrance door on the other, was a row of pictures. All of them were of young girls or young women. She could see that the artworks had been done over several different centuries. The one opposite her, dominating the main wall, was a blonde lady in uniform standing in front of a huge old-fashioned airplane with two massive propellers on each wing and a strange-looking double tail at the back. Saywood stared at the picture and had the uncomfortable feeling that the young lady was staring back at her. She moved along to the next picture on the right. It was an image of a... Hang on, just a bit of repetition of the word young there. Use the word young. The one opposite her, dominating the main wall, was of a blonde lady in a uniform, standing in front of a huge old-fashioned airplane with two massive propellers on each wing and a strange-looking double tail at the back. Saywood stared at the picture and had the uncomfortable feeling that the lady was staring back at her. She moved across to the next picture on the right. It was an image of a young, let's just say woman, just to repeat the lady. It was an image of a young woman with dark hair standing in front of a very old-looking green car. Old-fashioned... the car doesn't look a fashion-looking green car with a cream hood that was folded down at the back. She was wearing a stunning purple velvet dress with a cream hat covered in red and yellow flowers. Were these all real girls? Saywood walked up and down, awed at the beauty of the pictures and sickened by the ugliness of what they represented. "All real, all dead," said Sosie. Saywood walked slowly up one side, taking time to look at each picture, each expression and each detail. She noticed there was a gap at the end of the wall where one picture had been taken down. "That's your spot, Miss Amapofo. You may think I don't like you, but you are incorrect. You are terribly impressive. I respect what you could have become. Sadly, that is also the reason why I cannot allow you to live. I might say survive. Survive." Saywood turned and looked at him. "If you are impressed with me, can you do something for me? A favour, Miss Amapofo? Do what you like with me. But leave Rebecca. She will suffer enough when I don't come home." Sosie frowned. "I don't let my prey go." "I am your prey now. Don't hurt Rebecca." Tears filled her eyes. "Do this for me, and I'll continue to cooperate." "But I can make you cooperate anyway," shrugged Sosie. "I have already demonstrated that." Saywood turned away and walked over to the painting of the girl in front of the car. She looked up again into her eyes and touched the frame. She was immediately hit with a wave of emotion coming from a direction that she could not determine. Saywood snatched her hand away, and the feeling stopped. She stared at the picture and then closed her eyes and reached out with her mind. Whatever was there when she touched the... Let's use the... just... artwork instead of picture. Was in the background now. She looked around the room and realised it was not just the painting of the girl in the purple dress that was pushing thoughts into her head. It was every image, to remove the repetition of the word picture. It was every image in the room. Saywood concentrated her mind. The pictures were all sending emotions out to her. Some were anger, some were horror, some were terror, some were indignation, some were sorrow. As she focused on them, she understood. That what she was receiving was not like a thought from a living mind. It was as though someone had frozen a thought or a feeling, rather like what she imagined hearing the freeze frame on a video recording might sound like. She gasped as she made a sudden realisation and opened her eyes. They're all here. They're all trapped in here, but they're not dead. Sosie nodded. I'm not sensitive enough to hear the screams, so honestly I had no idea that was the case until an incident approximately 60 years ago. An institute member found me, managed to free someone from the canvas before I caught her. He pointed to a young-looking woman in an old-fashioned wheelchair. That's her. I have no idea how she managed it. She was a very clever woman, dangerously so. Saywood walked over to the picture of the girl in the purple dress and touched the frame again. The frozen emotion indicated terror and loathing and acute embarrassment. Saywood reached out further to let more thoughts and feelings in. She could sense Sosie there as well, but suddenly she knew how to ignore his thoughts. It was like choosing to listen to a particular voice in a crowded room. Saywood closed her eyes and let the grief and horror emanating from all of the pictures in the room engulf her. She allowed the feelings to infiltrate her so that she was experiencing them rather than just listening to them. The screaming intensified and became too much, so she tried to block it out, but it was as though she'd looked into a reservoir of emotions and her interest had caused the dam to burst. The feelings grew and grew, enveloping her, and Saywood added her screams to the agonised voices that now felt like they were ripping through her very soul. She screamed in pain and terror and rage and fear and felt her consciousness slipping away. She fought to stay awake and fell onto her knees so that if she did pass out, she'd not have as far to fall. Sosie leapt over to steady her, but when he made physical contact, he felt what she was feeling and, reeling, let go immediately. It was very different watching the pain and fear of others, but when he touched her, he'd experienced over a dozen tortured and terrified souls simultaneously. He watched Saywood as her eyes rolled upwards in her skull, and she keeled over. Sweating somewhat, he leaned over to her inert form and risked another touch, but now that she was unconscious, she was not transmitting anything anymore. Slightly shakily, Sosie picked her up, put her over his shoulder, and carried her out of the gallery. Later that evening, Rebecca sat in the flat, brooding. Isabel had driven her back here yesterday evening in total silence. Rebecca could not tell if she was furiously thinking or just furious. She had texted Isabel a couple of times today, asking her when she was coming to collect something of Saywood so that they could try to locate her again, but she had not had a reply. The phone was probably in Isabel's horrendously old-fashioned handbag, ignored until she needed it. It was so frustrating. Rebecca was out to pick up a phone and try and text Isabel again, perhaps even call her, when it started ringing. She was disappointed to see that the caller was Nathan Walsh, but answered the call anyway. "Hello," she said into the handset. "Miss Taylor," said Walsh. "I believe that we know where Miss Amapofo is being kept. The person who hired me has two objectives: retrieve Miss Amapofo safely and retrieve a specific piece of artwork. We are going to do that tonight. Are the police involved?" There was a pause. "This is strictly between you and me, but our visit does not involve the police. No." "Where is she? Where are you going?" "It's a place called Elvington Manor, about 15 miles west of Leicester." Rebecca nodded to herself. That figured. It was practically the opposite direction from the way Sosie had sent them with a duplicate prelata, because there was two of them. That was a deliberate plurally thing. "Once she is safe, we will deliver her to the police. I will send you a text message when that is done. Sit tight, Miss Taylor. We will find her for you." Rebecca put the phone down and thought for a moment. As much as she had found Isabel Marskoff rather sharp and occasionally patronising, there was something in the woman that she trusted. Isabel had seen something in a friend that she needed. Isabel had seen something in Saywood, not her friend. I mean, it is her friend, but Isabel had seen something in Saywood that she needed to preserve. She knew that Nathan Walsh had, she knew that Nathan Walsh told her what he had in confidence, but she did not believe that Saywood was his priority. Knowing that Walsh would not be happy but not caring, she picked up her mobile phone again and dialed Isabel. It rang for a few moments, then was answered. What? I'm very busy, Rebecca. She's at Elvington Manor, near Sheepy Magna Village. There was a pause. How did you know that? Snapped Isabel. You already knew. We're on our way there now. We're on our way there now. So is Nathan Walsh, the man who is investigating Sosie. Rebecca could hear Isabel swearing under her breath. How many people is he sending in? Isabel asked. I don't know, said Rebecca. But Walsh said we are going, not I am going, so it would be a fair assumption that he is not by himself. Damnation, said Isabel softly. We are also planning to pay Sosie a visit imminently. Can I come with you? Absolutely not. You can't stop me from getting a taxi. There was a pause on the other end of the line. OK, I'll come and get you. Be ready in 5 minutes. Bring something of Saywood's. When you are with us, you must do exactly as you are told this time. I promise, said Rebecca. Isabel ended the call. Rebecca ran to the bedroom and hurriedly packed a backpack with some clothes for Saywood. And there we go. Ugh. Right. So that is the 3 chapters I wanted to do today done. Let me just do the Grammarly thing, because then it is truly done. So file, export to Word. Next. I don't know if you're still here, Tani, but I've got a vague memory that I've had problems getting one of your reviews onto Amazon before. I've a vague memory I've had to make a similar phone call before. Does that ring a bell to you if you're still watching? Now I think about it. You are still here. Yeah. Does that ring a bell to you? It just, I'm thinking about it and I'm suddenly thinking I might have had to do this before. And most of the time I wouldn't give a shit. So I'm thinking it was something of yours because I'm quite keen for that to appear. I wonder, oh well, anyway, I'll have a look in a minute, see if they resolved it. They did say up to 24 hours, but we will have a look. Right, let's run it through the Grammarly. Okay, and we will have a general, neutral, tell a story, done. Oh, remove a comma. Had been approved. Remove the comma. The main thought you could see it the main thing you could see at the moment was surprise. The lack of painting. That's fine. Didn't display your work, your own work. No, that's fine. Dismiss. Remove the comma. She was girls or young women. Yep, okay. Terribly impressive. No, that's him speaking, so that's staying. The phrase indicated terror, loathing, and acute embarrassment. Okay. Oh, okay. Cool. Well, done. Right, so let's download it. Let's drag it up onto the desktop. Close that, open that. All, copy, minimize. All, nope, all, paste. All copy, all paste, all format, Excellent. No, that doesn't seem right. Oh, 11 pages, that's right. Right, there we go. So I've got my 3 chapters signed off today. 6 days to do the remaining 18. And actually I could have done more today if I'd been more awake. I was awake this morning. In fact, it was about 3 o'clock. I suddenly realised after I had my blinds fitted, I suddenly felt like I was really tired and sort of dozed. And then suddenly it was 7 o'clock. Right, let me drag... Oh, I haven't done the podcast yet. Let's do the podcast. God, it is late, isn't it? Let's do those as well. Congrats on getting the chapters done. Thank you. Right. Why is that doing that? There we go. So tomorrow I will be looking at... Yeah, this is the story really gets quite advanced now. So the next stuff I'm looking at is... Well, it's going to be Saywood's Rescue. I imagine that's quite a long chapter, that one. No, 10 pages, it's not horrendous. Yep, so there's a bit of action movie bollocks with people running around with guns and headphones. Temporal refugees, okay, yep. And then Edward's story. Now I think the chapter I've just read is the one where hopefully people, if they hadn't worked it out, will have worked out that young Edward Smith is Sir Teddy Ainsley. But I don't remember asking you about that specifically when you read it, Tani, but never mind. I wanted it to be obvious before it's revealed because I think it has more emotional clout that way. It's a bit like when you write a murder mystery. You kind of want people to work it out, but not on page 1. You want to work it out before you reveal it. You think you got that? Yeah, I'm sure I asked you about it at the time. Right, so podcastiness. Let's do that. Let's load the software. And then I'm going to go and do something else for a little while. Where's the software gone? It is there. Just load very slowly. Today would be nice. Oh, it is. It's just not opened a window for some reason. What's it doing? Come on. Right. Hello, today is Monday the 17th of March 2025 and you are listening to the Diary of a Wannabe Writer. And I've had quite a nice day today. So the most important thing to say is that actually, thinking about it, when I recorded the podcast yesterday, I had edited 3 chapters of the book, which took me up to chapter 10, didn't it? I think, or chapter 9 or something. Well, yesterday, after I'd done the podcast, I suddenly got all enthusiastic and realised that if I got to the end of chapter 12, that would leave me with exactly 21 chapters to go with 7 days of leave remaining, which meant I would have to edit 3 chapters a day. So yesterday, after I recorded the podcast, I managed to get up to and including chapter 12 of Still Life signed off, which is brilliant because that meant basically today I have to do 3. And I've done that as well. So I've just spent the last, I'm looking at the timing, I've just spent the last sort of 1 hour and a bit, nearly 2 hours editing those chapters. We are at the point now, so a lot of the feedback that I was given related to matters earlier on in the story. And I think I've only got a couple of notes left now. I will quickly look at them. So what notes have I got left? I've got notes about a character not having a motorbike, which is interesting. I will have to address that. I think that's in one of the chapters I'm about to do. There's a thing about checking Edward's age, but I'm pretty sure I know what that is because he is 14, I think. But I'll double. With 1923, he was 7 it's 8 years after the event of the first chapter, and he was 7 then, so he's about 14 or 15, yeah. So yeah, there's very little I need to do in the later chapters. Obviously, I'm still going to read through them and just see if any of the other notes that I've got can be applied. But yeah, it looks like I'm in a good place. So tomorrow's chapters, let me have a look at my list. Tomorrow's chapters that I will edit will be, hang on, chapters 16, 17 and 18, which take you to a really important part of the story. So it's kind of the first big reveal, and then it's kind of like you're almost halfway then, because you've kind of got the first bit of the story is over and done with, but then it's right, all the players are in the correct place now. How are we going to deal with this monster? So yeah, I will try and get up to chapter 18 done tomorrow, which will leave me 15 to do in the last 5 days. Though I might try and get 2 more, because there's 2 chapters there. One's called Edward's story, and one is called Teddy's story. And they're both quite short, and they kind of inform each other, really. So I think I will probably... yeah, I might try and do 4 chapters tomorrow. We shall see how I feel. Now, the other thing that I've done today, which was a lot of fun, was I sat down and recorded an interview for T.G. Campbell's sort of YouTube or video podcast series, In Conversation With. And it was a lot of fun. So I did know what questions I was going to be asked, apart from the quiz questions. And yeah, it was just a really enjoyable experience. So I did actually rewatch. So we both recorded it on our ends of the computer. Obviously, she recorded it on hers, I recorded it on mine, and I did watch back my copy just to make sure it came across fine. And yes, I don't come across as too much of an idiot. It was fine. It was really enjoyable. There was she did me a quiz based on my 60/40 short story collection, or rather not on the short stories, but based on the subject matter, which is the TV shows Doctor Who and The Bill. So you'll be able to see how good my knowledge is on those 2 shows. I don't think we have an exact date for it coming out yet, but I suspect it will be end of this month or beginning of next month. So yes, that's on the Bow Street Society YouTube channel. I will probably, once it's been out on there for a few days, incorporate it as part of the live stream here, so you guys can watch it if you want to. But yeah, so that was really, really good fun. I particularly enjoyed a question which was all about what 3 people, if I could have dinner with any 3 people, presumably at the same time, who would they be and why? And I won't give any of my answers away. I think it's fairly obvious that at least one of them will be related to one of my favourite TV shows. But I will let anybody interested speculate about who I would have at my dinner party. So yeah, so a productive day today. I have been very tired, so actually I intended it's nearly 20 to 10 now. My original intention was to get this writing done by about 5 o'clock and this podcast done by about 5 o'clock. But I didn't sleep very well last night, and I was very energetic this morning, and then this afternoon and evening I basically fell asleep on the sofa, and suddenly it was 7 o'clock, at which point I thought, I need to do some writing. And then I don't know if anybody was watching, I don't think they were. I couldn't find my iPad and I couldn't find the remote control so I could have the Twitch stream displayed on the TV, and yeah, it just was annoying, and I kind of worked myself up to the point where I just stopped the live stream and started again when I'd found the iPad and that remote control. Yeah. So yes, that's me done. Another successful day and quite enjoyable day. I'll be back tomorrow to hopefully announce that I've signed at least another 3 chapters off of Still Life. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Oh, half a second short. I'll live with that. Right, let me just quickly pop the opening and closing music onto that. So, open, close. I'm just going to full screen this because this little bit's easier to do like that. Then let's drag that down there. That there. Zoom in and just make sure that sounds about right. Hello, today is Monday Yep, that's fine. And then at the other end, I just need to drag that one there. And again, let's just make sure that sounds right. to hopefully announce that I've signed at least another 3 chapters off of Still Life. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. You have been listening to... So that's good. File export as MP3. File name is 170325. Save. And it always saves it onto the desktop. I shall drag it onto my... I don't know why I always put the bit of me actually scheduling the podcast on here, but I always do. So now I drag it into my podcast audio folder. And in theory now, I can access it from my phone and immediately upload it. We shall see. Sometimes if I'm not doing it as part of a live stream, I tend to literally record it straight onto my phone. I can add the opening and closing credits on there as well. Something went wrong, did it? Lovely. Right. Okay, so yep. So upload an episode. Is it going to be there today? Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. It is today. That's good. So it's show number 69. I shall call it In Conversation With, and 17th March 2025. I talk about some writing I did after I recorded the podcast yesterday, plus what I've done today, plus something I recorded with writer T.G. Campbell earlier in the day, which will be available on YouTube at some point in the future, ... Right, so I'll talk about some writing I did after I recorded the podcast yesterday, plus what I've done today, plus something I recorded with T.G. Campbell earlier in the day, which will be available on YouTube at some point in the future. Right, so Season 2, Episode 69. And, oh, did I do that right? Yes, I did. And I just need to change the logo to the current one. Done. So, yep, that's right, that's right, that's right, that's right. Publish. There we go. Podcast is up. Thank you so much to... well, it's mainly... I think it's just on this session... I didn't do one yesterday, did I? That was yesterday. Yeah, so thank you so much to Bow Street Society for her contributions during this today. We will see... let me just have a quick look on Amazon now to see if the review is come up, because although they say give it 24 hours, my hunch is they'll either sort it out straight away or procrastinate. So let's have a look, if we can find it. Okay, let's Curse of the Fatal Floor. There we go. Be the first to write a review. So no, the review is not up yet, but I will keep an eye on it and I'll chase it again in a couple. If you notice that it isn't still there before I do, please feel free to nudge me and I will contact them again. Right, that's me done for today. I am going to go and watch some episodes of Lost now. Thank you. Take care, everybody. I know it's only one person, I think, watching this now. Oh no, we've got quite a few people watching now. Well, thank you, and not enough for me to consider outing with a raid, but thank you to everybody who's watched. Thank you particularly to Bow Street Society for contributing and chatting with me today, and I'll be back, hopefully, well, no, I will be back at some point tomorrow. Bye.